The Wellness Show, Episode 88.
Welcome to The Wellness Show, a podcast on health and wealth. I'm your host, Tyson Bannigan, the founder of the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy. Join me as we get the latest insight, tips, and strategies from wellness providers, coaches, and successful, heart-centered entrepreneurs, and much, much more. So this is The Wellness Show, and our guest today is Ted Behr, and he's going to be talking about something that I think is extremely important, which is ADHD, which I know for many, many people is a really difficult problem when you have it, about how to manage the ordinary things that for us we take for granted. So this is an important topic for me. It's one that I'm excited to be able to talk to Ted about. So Ted, tell us a bit about who you are and how you came to this topic.
Let's see who I am. That's a big question. I live in the city of Boston, Massachusetts. Great town. I've been coaching for 19 years, and I kind of fell into it. I sort of stumbled across it when I was in the middle of a job search looking for a new position. And the more I found out about it, the more it just felt like it was the perfect fit for me. One of the things that always bothered me about going to work, to a job, was I felt I had to leave about half of myself outside when I came in the building. You know, I could bring in my brain, I had to leave my emotions, my intuition, all that stuff outside. So in coaching, I get to use all of that. And it's in the service of helping people. And that's what I love about coaching, is being able to help people achieve goals that they've been maybe trying to get to for maybe several years, but somehow not been able to. So that's how I got into coaching and what kind of brought me to coaching, what I love about it. And so I did my coach training in 1997, 98. And around the turn of the century, I heard about this ADHD coaching, and I just felt kind of fascinating, interesting, and I did a training course in it. And so I got to learn about it, what the issues were, how to help somebody with it. And so ever since, I've been coaching people with ADHD has been part of what I've done as part of my coaching business. And then fairly recently, I decided to actually make it the primary focus of my business.
So how did you come to that particular interest? Did you have problems yourself, or did somebody in your family have those problems, or?
You know, it's far enough back in the future that it's kind of very misty. I don't remember why. I must have met somebody maybe met somebody who's an ADHD coach. It was in the coaching community. We have a very tight coaching community here in Boston. And there was just something about it that just really interested me. And as I started learning about it and then working with people, it just, it kind of got its hooks in me.
Well, okay. Well, tell me about some of the hooks that got into you. What are some of the things that because you're focused on that? This is really interesting. I mean, you really narrowed down to this one niche. So there must be something in this niche that really appeals to some part of yourself. Can you give us a sense of why that's the case?
Yeah, I could say a couple things. So one thing you asked me, well, did I have it myself? And as far as I knew, I didn't. But about, I'm going to say maybe 3.5 years ago, I was working with a new coach who also did some ADHD coaching. And I was complaining once again about my difficulty being organized and getting things done. And she said, Ted, you've got ADHD. I was like 70 years old. And I said, no, I don't, because, you know, you have to have had it as a child, that's how it was seen for a long time. She said, not so much anymore. You know, symptoms can be hidden. Even now they're even talking about sort of an adult onset ADHD. So it's like it was this whole new window on the challenges that I was having, because I work for myself, I work at home, and so kind of being organized space-wise, time-wise, has been a challenge. It's like, oh, okay. So that's one. It's like, yeah, now it's much more meaningful to me because it is me.
Wow, that's a powerful insight. So if I'm understanding you correctly, what you're saying is that these symptoms can be latent and can turn up at any time in our lives, right?
Yes, that's accurate. Usually if it's after childhood, it's usually, I mean, I can look back and see ways that it probably was showing up even in graduate school, after that, but when it really started to show up was when I was on my own. When I had a job, I was very organized. People were really a shock sometimes to see how organized it was. But since I've been working for myself, it's been a daily challenge.
So let's spend some time, because I'm not sure that everybody that's a listener on the call understands what is ADHD and what are the symptoms and how do we recognize it. And particularly, I think for parents that are struggling with their younger kids, how do they know that might be something that's happening with their children?
Well, first, let me be really clear. I work with adults, so I don't know a lot about. I mean, I know the symptoms, but I really don't know a lot about working with children with ADHD. I don't have training in that, so my experience and training is around working with adults, but the symptoms are pretty much the same. So without getting too technical, ADHD is really it's a neurological, neurochemical syndrome. It's not even a disorder really, but there's different. Our people with ADHD, their brain chemistry works a little differently than most people. So that the part of the brain, which is actually the prefrontal cortex here, that is in charge of things like planning and decision making and organizing, that part isn't working up to a normal level. So all those things are really challenging for people with ADHD, so we struggle with staying focused. We're easily distracted. We start things and don't finish them. Some people can be pretty impulsive. Of course, there's the hyperactivity that I don't have. Not everybody has, but that's an issue for quite a few people. Difficulty planning, making decisions, all those things can be a really big challenge for us. So I'll stop.
Well, it sounds like a large swath of the population. So it seems like a lot of people have problems around planning and organization. And I mean, because of the hectic schedules that we have and the way that we've structured our lives and going to work and all those things that you were talking about.
Right. So that might respond to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Yeah, so it is true. If you look around, a lot of people say, isn't everybody ADHD or ADD? And the answer is no. It's about 4.5% of the population, adult population. But this is a very ADD culture, and it gets more and more. The more devices we have, the more distractions that we have, affect a lot of people. So yes, there are a lot of people who can get very distracted, or have trouble planning or being organized, or who procrastinate. Those particular behaviors don't in and of themselves mean that somebody has ADHD. They have to have kind of a whole constellation of these symptoms or behaviors. And again, now there is no test for it. It's generally diagnosed through a process with a psychiatrist or psychologist. A lot of answering a lot of questionnaires and that sort of thing. So no, we are not all ADHD or ADD, though a lot of people can struggle with some of the same things that we do.
Yeah, I found it interesting. A comment that you made is that our society is becoming more and more that way. So even though it is a small percentage of the population that's diagnosed, probably from a holistic perspective, we're becoming more and more that way. We're just so inundated by so much information, so many things going on. So we've talked a bit about the symptoms, and I don't want to get into the diagnosis too much, because to me that's a bit of well, it's a medical or a psychological analysis, which is sometimes I wonder about, how they determine that. But let's not worry about how that is determined. We just can deal with the symptoms, and if you know that you've got that, then they're going to come to somebody like Ted. And so Ted, I come to you, what sort of thing, and I think I have this as a problem, what sort of things do you do with me? Or how do you help me?
Well, first I want to be really clear that as a coach, I'm not a medical person. I'm not in a position to diagnose it, or certainly to prescribe medication. So if you would come to me and say that you notice you have these certain things that are issues that are going on for you, maybe you know somebody who has it, and it seems like you have some very similar things. After talking with you, it might even be could be a fairly brief conversation. I might recommend that you go for an evaluation. We have a number of different hospitals, clinics that do a full evaluation that I'm not able to do. And I have sent clients or suggested clients that they get evaluated when it seemed pretty clear to me that they did have it.
All right, so now I've gone and got my...
So in terms of, if you say, well, what can I do for you? So
yeah, I think that I like what you said, is that you're not here to make that diagnosis. You need to refer people to have that diagnosis. Once they have that diagnosis, then they can come back to you, and now you would admit them as a potential client. So now we're at that question that I was asking. So now, Ted, how do you work with how would you work with me if I was diagnosed with?
So I want to just say one more thing around the diagnosis piece, which is I will work with people who don't have an official diagnosis, because again, a lot of people do struggle with the same thing. So my focus in terms of going out, meeting people, talking to people is working with adults with ADHD. But if somebody says, well, I have these issues, these problems, and I think I can help them, I certainly will do that. So I work with people in 3 areas. So one is around the challenges, the distractibility, the difficulty focusing. the difficulty planning, difficulty organizing. And what I do with people is together we work to create structures and systems that essentially do the work that our brains aren't doing. Setting up schedules. I'll give you a simple example I use all the time. So a lot of people with ADHD have trouble with their mail. They just come home, get the mail, and they throw it in a pile. They don't open it. They don't do anything with it. They just throw it in a pile. And maybe after a month or so, they'll say, oh, I better look at this. Now, of course, and there may be bills in there. So, and this was truer in the past because now we have automatic bill paying and so on, but people would incur late charges, possible threats to cut off their electricity because they weren't paying attention to the mail. Mm-hmm. It just was not important. So one suggestion I would say was like, go out and buy like a nice, maybe a little wicker basket with 3 sections in it, or a tray with 3 sections in it. Every day when you come home, sort the mail. The bills go in one section. Other important mail goes in, say, the middle. Mail you might want to look at later on, but it's not really important in the third, and then you have your recycling bin for the that stuff. And then it's like, okay, now every day you've got to do this. So they have to develop this new habit where they actually start doing that. So maybe the first week, first of all, it may take them a week or 2 to just go out and buy it. Mm-hmm. Right? Then they get it. And then it's like maybe the first week they do it one day. That's great. That's one day. Then, okay, next week, keep working at it. Then maybe they'll do 2 or 3. And finally, with repetition and my support every week, kind of reminding them, checking in with them, this becomes part of how they operate. And so that's an example of the kind of thing that can work around keeping your desk clean, keeping papers filed, keeping the dining room table clear, keeping the kitchen clean and well organized. Any of those things, going to bed at a reasonable hour. People with ADHD seem to tend to stay up late and then not get enough sleep, which is not helpful. So I might be creating a routine around bedtime so they get to bed earlier.
So it's
creating those structures. It's creating those structures and systems. So now the second area I work with people on is the strengths that they have that are also due to the ADHD, because it's not just ADHD is not just a set of problems. It actually comes with some real gifts. And people with ADHD tend to be very creative. You find a lot of people in the arts who have ADHD, music, visual arts, and so on. People like recently, I think Justin Bieber came out and said, or Timberlake, one of them, talked about having ADHD. So a lot of people actors, I think Robert De Niro, were very good with people, very empathetic. So you find a lot of people with ADHD who are in helping professions. Very good risk takers. You find a lot of entrepreneurs have ADHD. Very big idea people. We're good at ideas, not so good at implementation. So it's also
perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. I mean, what you're talking about is really, for the entrepreneur, the innovator, is how to put the wheels underneath their vision, how to come up with systems, how to come up with strategies, how to hire the staff to do that. I mean, we're really talking about working with really highly creative people and helping them come up with systems that can help them manage their day and implement their vision into reality. So, wow, that's a set of skills that I can see a lot of people could really benefit from.
Yeah, people with ADHD tend to be very, very smart. You have a lot of brilliant people, scientists, so Einstein, Edison, amazing people. As long as people get treatment, then those strengths have a chance to come out. But if people aren't being treated and they're really struggling with being focused, getting distracted, being able to get organized, that's where all their energy goes, and they're not able to take advantage of the strengths. In fact, people who are diagnosed, who have it, and who aren't treated, and I include medication as part of a treatment plan if it works for people. It doesn't work for everybody. Higher incidence of substance abuse, more traffic accidents and traffic tickets. People with ADHD, untreated ADHD, end up in prison. Big divorce. So it's like either you're really having trouble in life, or it's like you're brilliant and creative and you're able to use those skills.
Well, I love the fact that you help people understand that there is both a positive and negative to it, that it's not all negative, and that, in that brilliance, in that leading edge of the ability to process information in a totally different way than the average person, that there's gifts in that, and that those can be strengthened and can be enhanced by putting together systems that allow the person to continue to be creative. I mean, when you mentioned Einstein, and I was thinking of the picture of his desk, right, which is just like chaos central, right? So I can see that creativity can become overwhelming for people. Like, where did I put that anywhere? Or where did I put all those paints? Or how do I process that? So I'm curious, have you found that around the idea that, it takes 21 days to create a new program or a new conditioning? Have you found that? I mean, that's really what you're doing with people, is helping them come up with systems. Have you found that 21 days?
It is creating new habits.
Sorry?
It is a lot about creating new habits. So like the example I gave of the mail, it's creating the habit of every day sorting the mail as soon as you get home. Any kind of structure involves developing new habits.
Have you found
I don't know about 21 days. I mean, it's not quite as I don't think it's quite as easy as that. And I think particularly people with ADHD, developing new habits and new routines is more challenging than the general population. But actually, it's funny. I just did a Facebook Live video just before I called you, talking about a conversation I had with a client around how to develop a new habit of doing a weekly review of for her, getting things done. And one way to help make it a lot easier to develop a habit is to attach it to something that's already a habit, already part of your routine. So with her, I was suggesting make it after dinner on Sunday, then go to your desk and do this. She has dinner on Sunday, so it's like, okay, dinner, weekly review, dinner, weekly review, dinner, weekly review. Or if somebody wants to meditate, meditation is really good for people with ADHD. But it's hard for some people to sit still. They want to develop that habit. They want to meditate 15 minutes before bed. Do it right after you brush your teeth, because you have a habit of brushing your teeth. Brush teeth, meditate. Next day, brush teeth, meditate. So connecting something you want to create as a habit to something that already is a habit really can speed up the process.
Well, that's a great hot tip. I like that for anybody and everybody that wants to
That's right.
create a habit.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Is to hook it on to a habit that you already have. So do you have another hot tip? I mean, that was really, really insightful for everybody, ADHD or not, right?
Well, okay, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if this is exactly a hot tip. All right, so one of the things that people talk about with ADHD and not talk about your to-do list. How do you do your to-do list? So one of the things I suggest, and I didn't originate this idea, but rather than kind of making this long list with, who knows, 8, 10, 15 things on it, right, that you then check off, only put 3 things. Look at what you're working on and pick the 3 most important things that need to get done that day and put those on your list. I read sort of 3 to 5. I think 3 is a great place to start. So rather than having this long list that you're looking at, and one of the things that is easy for people with ADHD is to get overwhelmed. Mm. So 3 things is not an overwhelming list. 2, if you've got a list of 10 things and you get 5 of them done, how do you feel?
Super.
Or do you feel, gosh, I only got half the things done I said I wanted to do, right? It's like, it wasn't a successful day because I didn't get everything done. But if you put 3 things on the list and you get those done, or maybe you add a 4th or 5th, it's like, wow, this was a super day. I got everything done and then some. So one of the things that's, again, it's important for everybody, but again, particularly for people with ADHD, because of our struggles and difficulties in being successful at things, we want to really create, an environment of success. We want to set ourselves up for success. So that's one of the things I suggest. Keep the list very short, just the important things, 3 to 5 important things. Work on those, and then when they're done, if you still have time, then look at your other stuff and say, okay, now I have time. I can do this other thing, or 1 or 2 other things in addition. So I don't know if consider that a hot tip, but
I think that's a hot tip. So I would think that then part of that is that having 3 things on your list and that you can accomplish 3 things. Then I would think that celebration or rewarding yourself, or is part of that as well, right? That that's extremely important. Is that to allow ourselves to be excited about the fact that we've achieved something.
Totally right, Tyson. Celebrating success is really important, because if we do something that's successful, we finish a task and we say, okay, I'm done with that. What's next? Without stopping and saying, woohoo! I finished that. It's done. 1 thing out of the way. I'm a success. Now I can do number 2. It's a big difference, because if it's like I don't know if this is exact science, but the way I understand kind of how we work is that our subconscious is always observing and listening to what's going on, and it takes its cues from what we say and how we behave and what we think. And if what we're doing is when we do something successful, is like, okay, next, then the message you're giving is success isn't that important. Whereas if you celebrate it, as you're talking about, then you're like giving your subconscious, we really like success. We want more of that. So
I like that. It sounds like your program should be called Setting Yourself Up for Success.
I like it. Well, my business is called Expressway to Success.
Good. Great. Well, we're on the same path then. Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. Yeah. So do you work with people just individually, or do you work also in groups?
So far, I work with people one-on-one individually. I work basically I work on the phone. So I can have clients anywhere, U.S., Canada. I had a client in South Africa. It's the phone, or sometimes if it's outside the U.S., I use Skype. Might start trying out Zoom. Pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Well, we've got 30 seconds to go. So how do people get hold of you?
Well, best way is through my website, which is expressway2success.com. It's expressway, success.com. There's a form there that they can fill out, a contact form. I also have a free ebook called ADHD 7 Tips for Getting Things Done. That's also available on my site. They just put in their first name and email, and they'll get a link to download that. So that's how they can find me. expressway2success.com.
It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Tyson. It's been a lot of fun.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
For quality online wellness products, courses, and services, visit our sponsors, thewellnessstore.ca and the Extraordinary Healing Arts Academy located at thewellnessacademy.ca. To stay in touch, visit us at thewellnessshow.ca. And until next time, be healthy, wealthy, and wise.